Let's start by opening iTunes for the first time. On a Mac, you'll most likely have your iTunes icon in your dock, so you can just click that. If you don't see it in your dock, you'll find iTunes in your Applications folder, and you can either open it from there or drag that into your dock if you want to keep it there. I'm just going to click the icon in my dock. If you're using Windows, you can also open iTunes from a couple of places depending on how you chose to install it. You may have a shortcut to iTunes on your desktop, or you can also go to your Start menu, to All Programs, and find iTunes from there. The first time you open iTunes, you will have to agree to the software license agreement, so read through that really quick, just like so, and click Agree. The first time you run iTunes, you'll also see this iTunes Setup Assistant, which walks you through the process of getting iTunes set up on your computer using a series of questions. So just click Next. First, iTunes tells you about Internet Audio, basically asking if you want iTunes to be the default application when it comes to streaming audio from the Internet. Unless you have another application you want to use, you can keep Yes here checked, and then click Next. iTunes is also going to offer to find any music files that are already on my computer and copy them into my iTunes Music folder. Here on my Mac, it's going to offer to look for both MP3 and AAC files. If you're on Windows, it will also ask you if you want to locate WMA files. Now, if you choose Yes, it will actually search your entire hard drive and find any files to copy into your library. My personal preference is to choose No, so I can add them later myself, because my personal computer has a ton of audio files that aren't music files, and I don't want or need them to be managed in iTunes. So you can decide what to do yourself here. If you do choose Yes and you have a large hard drive, be prepared to wait a little bit as iTunes searches for all of your audio files. So I'm going to keep No selected and click Next. Next, I'm asked whether I want to keep my iTunes Media folder organized. What this means is, if after I've imported music, for example, and I decide to fix an error in, say, the artist's name or maybe the song's name in iTunes, if I've chosen to have iTunes keep my folder organized, it will then move the files and rename them, including any folders that they're kept in, as appropriate. I suggest keeping Yes checked here, because unless you want to manually move files around for some reason, you should just let iTunes handle all the behind-the-scene organizational work for you. And you can change this preference in iTunes Preferences later, but for now I'm going to keep Yes selected. And next we have the Download Artwork screen, which just tells you a little about how you can download album artwork to go along with your music files. Basically, this lets you see the artwork for the album from which your music came, which is a nice touch. So you'll only have to go through the Setup Assistant this first time you run iTunes. Now, if you recently upgraded iTunes to a newer version, you might have to agree to the licensing agreement again, or read about new features or other things like that, but you should be able to make your way through these things without any problems. Now I'll click Done. New to iTunes 9 is this Welcome screen, which gives you access to some short video tutorials to help you get started. You'll only see this the first time you run iTunes unless you check Show this window when iTunes opens. Now, if you accidentally close this window, and you want to get it back to watch some of the videos, you can get to it by going to the Help menu and choosing Welcome to iTunes, which brings it back. But I don't really need this right now, so I'll go ahead and close it. And now we're looking at the main iTunes window. Currently, my iTunes library is completely empty because this is a new installation of iTunes and I haven't yet imported any music, video, or other files. Another nice new feature of version 9 of iTunes is that Apple has now added these ways for you to get started by either visiting the iTunes store to purchase music or to import music from your CD collection. There's even access here to some of those video tutorials to help you learn how to do these things. Of course, they aren't as thorough and don't exude as much personality as the tutorial you're watching now, but they're pretty good. Anyway, we'll be talking about the iTunes Store and how to import music a little bit later, but first we'll take a look at and familiarize ourselves with the interface elements in the iTunes window.